The person is sitting on the edge of the bed, quiet, staring at the floor as if the world had silenced all sound. Nothing extreme, nothing dramatic, just that heavy silence that no one notices. The kind of silence that hurts more than any scream. You know that feeling, don't you? When it seems like the body is still there, but the soul is trying not to crumble. It's that moment when you hold your breath just to keep the tears from falling. As if you were protecting something no one can see. As if any word could break you. And deep down, what you feel seems too big to contain inside. But you swallow it. You always swallow it. Because you've learned to be strong even when you can't take it anymore. Some people think silence is calm, but you know that's not the case. In fact, the silence of someone who is hurting weighs like a suitcase full of things that no one helped carry. And every time you're quiet, the world thinks everything is all right. Because you've learned to hide, to disguise, to hold tight to what no one needs to know. But inside there's something that hurts, and you try not to show it. And even without realizing it, you've become an expert at keeping things inside. Keeping what you feel inside. Keeping what you think inside. Keeping even what hurts you inside. As if speaking were dangerous. As if opening up were synonymous with losing something. It's curious how some pains arrive slowly, almost always in the early morning. They don't knock on the door. They sit beside you and say, "Be quiet. No one will understand anyway." And the worst part is that you believe them. So you stay there, motionless, holding everything in with a strength no one recognizes. People see your resistance, but not the war you're waging with yourself. You feel a weight on your chest as if you were carrying the whole world on your shoulders, but when someone asks if you're okay, you just answer, "I am." Because it's easier. Because it hurts less. Because you've learned to survive that way. Sometimes you feel the urge to speak, but the words get stuck. They pound in your throat, beg to be heard, plead to exist, but you push them back inside, and you fall silent once more, not for lack of will, but for fear. Fear of not being understood. Fear of seeming weak. Fear of opening up something you yourself can't explain. So you choose to keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself so as not to worry. Keep it to yourself so as not to bother anyone. Keep it to yourself because you think it's your responsibility to bear it alone. And silence becomes your companion. A heavy companion, but a familiar one. And deep down, there's a thought you try to hide even from yourself. The feeling that maybe you don't deserve to be cared for. That maybe you're not important enough for someone to stop and truly ask, "What's happening to you?" And that's the most painful part. When you learn to accept crumbs of attention as if they were affection. When you believe that feeling deeply is your problem and nobody else's. And this habit grows, dominates, molds your way of existing in the world. And you become smaller inside, while everyone thinks you're too strong to fall. Maybe no one sees it, but you know there's a part of you silently crying out for help. A part tired of holding the world together. A part that would like to rest inside someone, even if only for a few minutes. And maybe that's why you're here now. Because something inside you knows that keeping everything inside has a price. But you don't say it. You never say it. But you feel it. You feel everything. You feel it intensely. You feel it alone. And today, maybe it's the first time someone has truly felt it. He sees in this silence. There's a type of person who keeps everything to themselves. Not because they want to, but because they don't know how to do it differently. They feel deeply but don't show it. They suffer silently but don't ask for help. They carry emotions all day long that they never say aloud. And this becomes a pattern, an automatic mechanism, as if it were forbidden to take up too much space, as if revealing their pain were a threat. And you know this feeling well, wanting to talk but not being able to, wanting to ask but freezing, wanting to vent but feeling like you don't have the right. And that's the wound, the difficulty of existing emotionally in the presence of another, the feeling of being too big emotionally and at the same time, too small to be heard. A confusing duality that no one explains. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to admit that you are suffering? Have you noticed how your thoughts lock up, even when someone asks if you need anything? It's as if your words are afraid to exist, And this isn't just shyness. It's not just strength. It's an emotional wound built up over many years. People who keep everything bottled up experience an internal conflict. They want to be understood, but fear being judged. They want to open up, but believe they can't fail. They want to be seen, but have learned to disappear. It's a complex, silent psychological dilemma, and far more common than it seems. How many times have you swallowed tears just to avoid appearing weak? How many times have you smiled while falling apart inside? How many times have you held everything back because you believed no one would understand anyway? This pattern repeats itself almost invisibly. Many people live like this without realizing it. They see this behavior in themselves, but they don't know how to name what they feel. They don't understand why they always freeze up when they try to open up. They don't understand why they ask for so little, even though they need so much. And that's where the confusion arises. Am I the problem? Why can't I talk? Why does it seem like I feel too much? These questions remain there, hammering in the back of their minds, without clear answers. And the person continues to keep everything bottled up as they always have. In psychology, this is not an exaggeration, not drama, not neediness. It's an emotional response, a survival mechanism, a learned pattern to avoid rejection, criticism, humiliation, or abandonment. Those who keep everything inside, keep it inside out of fear. Those who remain silent for protection. And those who avoid talking about their pain, avoid it because they've learned that words can hurt more than silence itself. It's a kind of distorted self-care, a care that hurts. And that's why you identify with this so much. Because part of you knows that keeping everything bottled up doesn't mean being strong. It means having been strong for too long. It means getting used to the weight until you thought you deserved to carry it alone. And now you're starting to understand this isn't about a lack of courage, it's about old wounds. Wounds that taught you not to bother anyone, not to ask, not to feel out loud, to live in an inner world that few know, but that consumes you gradually. This habit of keeping everything to oneself usually begins early, even before you understand what emotion is. It often stems from childhood, from environments where expressing feelings was seen as exaggeration, weakness, or a nuisance. Children learn quickly. If crying makes someone lose their temper, they stop crying. If asking for attention leads to criticism, they stop asking. If showing pain becomes a reason for scolding, they start hiding it. And years later, this behavior becomes a silent armor. An armor that protects, but also imprisons. Sometimes it wasn't anyone who said anything directly. It was the way you adapted to the environment. The adult's silence, their rush, the lack of emotional space, the fear of being a burden, the perception that your emotions were too big for those around you. And so you learned to calibrate everything, to shrink, to feel without showing, to suffer without speaking. And this became an automatic reflex. When something hurts you, your mind responds before you realize it. Swallow it, hold it in, endure it, as if it were law. It can also stem from experiences where you tried to open up and weren't welcomed. Maybe you struggled to speak and someone interrupted you, or downplayed it or used your words against you. This taught you that vulnerability is dangerous, that trusting hurts, that speaking up is pointless, and the brain learns quickly when it comes to avoiding pain. It creates emotional shortcuts. It says, don't risk it. And you obey, sometimes without realizing it, sometimes thinking it's just your way. But it's deeper than that. Emotional insecurity also plays a significant role. People who keep everything bottled up often carry an inner feeling of inadequacy, as if they were never good enough, as if opening up would reveal flaws, as if their emotions were inconvenient. The mind creates a pattern. Feeling is allowed, but showing is not. Asking is allowed, but only as a last resort. Crying only when no one is watching. It's a way to protect oneself from judgment, from abandonment, from rejection, from the fear of not being loved if one is too genuine. Over time, this mechanism becomes part of one's identity. It's as if the person believes their role in the world is to take care of everything, endure everything, solve everything, but never be taken care of themselves. And this manifests in small details. You say everything's fine even when it's not. You smile without wanting to. You avoid deep conversations. You withdraw when you need help. You become an expert at appearing strong while you're exhausted inside. Not by choice, but due to emotional conditioning. And the truth is, deep down, keeping everything bottled up has never been a sign of strength. It's always been a sign of survival. A way to avoid old pains. An attempt to not relive old wounds. A strategy that worked when you were little, but now exacts a high price. Because what you don't express weighs you down. What you don't say grows. What you keep bottled up wears you down. And even if you don't realize it, your body and mind feel it. The impact of this silence every day. Imagine a person sitting on a bus returning home after a long day. They look out the window but see nothing. Their mind is elsewhere, trapped in thoughts no one knows. Their face is calm, almost neutral, but inside there's a hurricane. They take a deep breath, swallow hard, straighten their posture, as if that would support something invisible. When their phone vibrates with a message asking if everything is all right, they reply, "Yes, that's all." And not because they are all right, but because they don't know how to explain what they feel, so they keep it to themselves. Again, as they always have. In another scene, a person arrives home after a difficult day. They close the door carefully, as if any noise would break it from the inside. They lean their back against the wall and stand there, still, breathing slowly. Tears threaten to fall, but they take a deep breath, push everything inside, and tell themselves, it's not the time. They go to take a shower, let the water run, and there, in the only place no one sees, a tear escapes. Just one. Enough to relieve, but not to release. Because releasing for them always seems too dangerous. Perhaps you've experienced this, being surrounded by people and yet feeling alone inside. It's that silence that no one notices, that absence of words that no one questions. You are there, physically present, but emotionally locked up. And not for lack of will, but simply because you don't know how to open the door. Have you ever tried to imagine your emotions as objects scattered on the floor? You look at it all, but you don't have the courage to show it to anyone. So you hastily gather everything and store it inside an invisible box, hiding it even from yourself. These little stories reveal something profound. Those who keep everything to themselves aren't cold. They aren't distant. They aren't indifferent. In fact, they feel more than others. They feel with intensity, depth, and detail. But this intensity is frightening, and that's why they prefer to remain silent. They prefer not to expose themselves. They prefer not to risk being misunderstood. It's as if they carry an ocean inside their chest but have learned to smile as if it were just a glass of water. And this contrast is exhausting, very exhausting. There's also that moment when someone tries to hug you and you harden inside, not because you don't want the hug, but because you don't know how to receive it. It's as if your mind is saying, don't melt, don't relax, you don't need to. But your body craves affection. Your soul craves comfort. But fear speaks louder, and you become this strange mixture of wanting and avoiding at the same time. Like a door that opens only half a centimeter, just enough not to seem closed, but never enough to let someone truly in. And perhaps the saddest part of these stories is the part no one sees. When the person lays their head on the pillow and finally allows themselves to feel what they've held in all day. There in the dark, where no one judges, no one demands, no one observes, they release some of the accumulated pain, not by choice, but out of exhaustion. And deep down, they hope that the next day they can carry it all again, as if it were normal, as if it were easy, as if holding the whole world inside their chest were just another part of the routine. What no one realizes is that these people who keep everything to themselves rarely do so by choice. It's an adaptation, a mechanism, a silent way of surviving what has already hurt too much. They seem calm, but they are always analyzing everything, weighing words, measuring emotional risks. Before answering any question, they go through an internal filter that asks, will this hurt me? And almost always the answer is yes. That's why they protect themselves. That's why they distance themselves. That's why they remain silent. Not out of coldness, but out of emotional caution. No one sees the amount of internal dialogue that happens within them. While the world believes they are strong, independent, and good at handling everything on their own, the truth is different. Their minds never rest. They review conversations, rethink attitudes, try to understand where they went wrong, try to predict what might go wrong. And when someone says, "You need to talk more," they even know it. The problem is that opening their mouths requires a courage that no one imagines. Because for those who have already been emotionally hurt, vulnerability is not simple. It's a minefield. Another invisible aspect is the emotional loneliness these people carry. It's not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of not feeling understood. They may have friends, family, relationships, but still feel that no one reaches the depth of what they keep inside. And this generates a silent void, an inner space that no one can fill. Often they even try to explain what they feel, but they feel shame, fear, confusion. So they stop, they freeze, they retreat, and they go back inside themselves, where they believe it is safer. There's also an invisible behavior that almost no one notices: self-neglect. People who keep everything to themselves tend to always put themselves second. They care, help, listen, support, but when it's their turn, they fall silent. They think they shouldn't get in the way. They think they don't deserve to bother anyone. They think their feelings aren't that important. And this, over time, erodes self-esteem. The person begins to believe that it's better this way, that asking for something is excessive, that having needs is a weakness. This creates a silent and cruel emotional cycle. And there's something even deeper, almost invisible even to themselves: the feeling of carrying a guilt that makes no sense. Guilt for feeling too much, for not being able to open up, for not being light enough for people. They believe their emotions are too complicated, so they hide everything so as not to burden anyone. And this distorted idea becomes part of their emotional identity. The person begins to think that their pain doesn't deserve space, that their sadness doesn't deserve attention, that their heart doesn't deserve to be heard. And that's devastating. Deep down, what these people really want is to be understood without having to explain themselves. They want a perceptive gaze, a welcoming presence, a safe place where they can let loose without fear. They want to be seen from the inside, without judgment, without haste, without pressure. But on the outside, they continue smiling. They continue functioning. They continue being the fortress that everyone admires. And no one imagines how much that weighs on them. No one realizes how tired they are. No one sees the daily internal struggle they wage to keep going, appearing whole. Keeping everything to yourself seems to work at first, but the emotional cost arrives slowly, almost always when you least expect it. The person begins to feel a tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep, an exhaustion that no rest can resolve. It's the accumulated weight of years holding on to what was never shared, and this affects the body. Breathing becomes short. The mind is constantly tense. The chest tightens out of nowhere. It's a silent wear and tear, a type of suffering that makes no sound but consumes. And the more a person keeps to themselves, the heavier they become inside, even if they seem light on the outside. This pattern also erodes self-esteem. When someone spends their entire life suppressing themselves, they begin to believe that their emotions don't really matter. They start to think that asking for affection is demanding too much, that asking for help is weakness, that expressing pain is drama. And this belief, repeated silently, dismantles self-love. The person begins to accept little, expect little, believe in little. They live thinking that their presence is bothersome and that being emotionally discreet is the only way to be accepted. And that hurts. It hurts deeply. In relationships, this silence creates distance. Not because the person doesn't love, but because they don't know how to show themselves. They want closeness, but they also fear being seen on the inside. So they withdraw. They hide. They avoid important conversations. They don't express needs. They don't say what they feel. And little by little, the bonds become shallow, fragile, incomplete. Those around them think everything is fine, but it's not. The person who keeps everything bottled up feels alone even when they are with someone. They feel that no one sees them. They feel that no one reaches them. And they suffer in silence, as always. Another silent effect is the difficulty in making decisions. When a person never talks about what they feel, they lose their sense of what they truly want. Their desires become stifled, hidden, muffled by fears. They begin to choose what weighs least on others, not what weighs least on themselves. They choose to please. They choose to avoid conflict. They choose not to be a problem. And without realizing it, they lose themselves. You drift away from your own desires. You become a visitor in your own life, not the protagonist. Over time, this emotional buildup turns into anxiety, a silent, hidden anxiety, difficult to explain. The mind doesn't stop. The heart races for no reason. The feeling of constant alert becomes routine, because keeping everything inside creates an internal storage that is always about to overflow. The person is afraid of exploding, but also afraid of creating too much space. They are trapped between wanting and not being able to, between feeling and hiding, between needing and denying, and this endless conflict wears down the soul like few other things. And perhaps the most profound consequence is this: when you keep everything hidden, no one knows your true self. People live with your masks, but not with your heart. And this creates a huge void, an inner space that hurts, a feeling of lack that you don't know where it comes from. Because the truth is that no one can love you completely if you never show yourself completely. And this understanding, however painful it may be, is what hurts the most those who have spent their entire lives screaming inside and silently, roaring from the outside. The first truth you need to hear is simple and profound. You are not broken. You are not cold. You are not closed off. You are hurt. And you reacted in the only way you knew how. Holding everything in was your way of surviving in an environment that didn't know how to embrace your emotions. You did the best you could with what you had. And there is no guilt in that. There is history. There is context. There is pain. Change begins when you understand that what you do today doesn't define who you are. It only defines where you've been. The second truth is that you don't suddenly need to become someone who talks everything. No one heals a lifetime of silence in a single outburst. The turning point isn't in broadcasting what you feel, but in allowing small openings to exist. One word a day. An occasional, "I'm not feeling well." A simple request. A short conversation. These small openings don't make you too vulnerable. They humanize you. They remind your heart that you also deserve space, that you also deserve to be heard. Another important turning point is realizing that asking for help doesn't diminish your strength. In fact, it reveals the courage you've always had but hidden. Hurt people have been taught to believe they need to endure everything alone, but that has never been true. Support is not dependence, vulnerability is not weakness, expressing pain is not drama, it's emotional freedom. It's accumulated content being released little by little. It's weight being shared with someone who knows how to hold on. You don't lose when you open up, you save yourself. You also need to understand that your intensity is not a flaw, your depth is not an exaggeration. Your sensitive way of feeling the world is not a problem. The pain you carry didn't come from feeling too much. It came because you had to feel it alone. Change begins when you accept that there is beauty in feeling, even when it hurts. There is greatness in being profound. There is strength in having emotions that demand to exist. What hurts is not feeling, it's hiding. And you no longer need to live in that emotional hiding place. Another realization is this: no one sees your pain because you've learned to hide it too well. This doesn't mean no one cares. It means you've never allowed yourself to be seen. You don't need to open everything up at once, but you need to gradually allow someone to see a little bit of you. Start small. Start safe. Start with someone who listens to you without rushing. Healing doesn't come with intensity. It comes with consistency. One piece at a time. One word at a time. A light but firm step. And finally, understand this: you don't need to be enough for the whole world. You only need to be true to yourself. The silence that protected you in the past now suffocates you. But you are not obligated to continue carrying what you have carried until now. There is a possible path between complete silence and absolute catharsis, a place of balance where you feel, speak, and breathe without fear. And that path begins now, the moment you realize that keeping everything inside no longer needs to be your only option, only way to exist. Perhaps you've never said it out loud, but there's a part of you that's tired of being strong all the time. A part that craves rest, a part that wants to be seen without having to shout. And, deep down, you know that keeping everything to yourself has protected you, but it has also hardened you. Today, perhaps it's time to look inside honestly and ask, who would I be if I didn't have to hide? The answer won't come quickly, but it exists. And when you allow it, it will find you. You deserve to be light. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to exist fully. Life exacts a high price from those who feel alone, but it also gives back a great deal to those who allow themselves to be human. And being human isn't about being perfect, nor strong all the time. Being human is about having good days and bad days. It's about having overflowing feelings. It's about needing support. It's about sometimes collapsing along the way. And all of that is normal. All of that is allowed. You no longer need to believe that your emotions are a problem. They are part of you. They tell your story. They show your struggles. And there is no shame in being someone who feels deeply. Perhaps the biggest step you can take right now is simple. Recognize that keeping everything bottled up no longer serves you. Maybe it did once. Maybe it protected you. But today, it isolates you. It tires you. It weighs you down. And you don't need to keep hiding behind a strength that hurts you. There is gentleness waiting for you. There is affection available. There are people who can listen to you. And most importantly, there is a future in which you don't have to carry everything alone. Change doesn't begin when you say everything. It begins when you stop being completely silent. There's something powerful about realizing that you too deserve to be cared for. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And real people connect. Real people create real bonds. Real people allow themselves to be vulnerable. You can little by little learn to exist without fear, to be seen without shame, to feel without hiding. Every small opening you make will be a step towards your own emotional freedom. You don't need to run. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to allow a little light to enter where before there was only silence. And if no one has ever told you this, I'll tell you now. You are not alone. Your pain matters. Your silence speaks. Your heart deserves space. The world doesn't just need your strength, it needs your truth, your sensitivity, your depth, your unique way of feeling. And all of that is still inside you, waiting to breathe without fear. You don't need to get rid of anything today. You just need to allow yourself to exist more gently, a little lighter, a little more visible, a little more you. If this message touched you in any way, take a deep breath for a moment. Allow a part of you to calmly feel it. And if you want to continue receiving content that embraces your mind and heart, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and activate the notification bell. Here, you don't need to explain yourself. Here, you just need to be human.